the Durant Road connector between Honeycutt and Falls and Noose where the side path picks up. The extension of Walnut Creek West from Jones Franklin up to Buck Jones. There's not a good parallel. It's like the Greenway would have to do the heavy lifting, but once you get to Buck Jones, it connects across the interstate into Cary. It's a really important bike connection. And then the last one is the Hare Snipe Creek, but I know how hard that one is.
That one's a priority.
Okay, yeah, I know it's going to be difficult, and I'm looking at some on-road interim stuff that might tide us over in the meantime using neighborhood bikeways in the bike plan update. So wouldn't fix it long term, but it would at least start building some user base if I can make it work. I don't know if the speed limits are going to cooperate with me. But that also gets back to, we were talking about the unimproved. From a transportation perspective, there's really sort of two tiers. That north shore of Lake Johnson, which is really kind of like a fire road, it's gravel, it's graded. It's actually perfectly fine for most bicycles. I've ridden my road bike on it and it's not uncomfortable. It's, you slow down a little bit, but it's fine. But that's a lot different from, say, what's the one that goes underneath Wade Avenue up through Schenck Forest? It's like, yeah, that one, I'm on a fat tire bike with knobby tires and probably stepping off once or twice. That's really not a transportation connection, but that's fine. Like I say, there might even be a two-tiered if we decide to use that, but I think there's some places where the unimproved trails, provided they're graded and relatively smooth, kind of like we've got there at the north shore of Lake Johnson on the west side, those are fine. I mean, the whole section of the ATT in Wake County is all gravel, but it's perfectly usable on a bike. So anything that's sort of close to that spec is okay by us. A tangent, but.
Can y'all see my screen?
Yeah.
Got it. Let me know if you'd like to, let's see, zoom anywhere specifically. I think the first one's just getting general impressions, I think, of things that stand out. So similar to what kind of Paul conveyed.
Yeah, so I can see the one on from Lake Johnson over to Buck Jones. It's highlighted with that peach color. It's a green one. Yeah, I can see your cursor moving around. So yeah, if you just, that's it. Yeah, right over there.
Yep.
That guy right there. That's a big one. So what are we looking at on Tryon Road? Because I know I actually sat down with Juliet and Eric back when I was still at Campo. And I think both entities there envisioned that being a side path going along Dillard to connect up to Piney Plains Greenway over in Cary. So if you go just south of there,
yeah,
where you were.
For some reason, it's not allowing me to zoom this way.
Okay. I see it bouncing around, but. And I don't want to hijack everything. That was my first impression, was those are the first ones I go to. I'm like, are they there?
Yeah, well, okay, so I have to admit I haven't spent too much time looking at these maps, making sure, like just my institutional knowledge is there. I think some of those corridors, like in the draft document, we're going to be able to take the corridors that we know aren't going to be able to follow with the stream and actually show, just maybe a more, maybe a 15% conceptual alignment. I'm hoping that that's what Jared and Tom, you guys have in mind for input on that. But the connection along Walnut Creek into Cary, like may or may not could follow the stream. So I think we've taken some of the corridors and we've said, okay, no, it's not going to be able to do that exactly, but here's where it can go. So I'm hoping that the maps will reflect that. The other thing is we have, our map now is just, we've got these connectors. So like the Durant connector that Paul was talking about, we have connectors that either follow like a utility line or a street that has no stream corridor. So just like the road system, we try and provide these sort of loop connectors so that you have smaller circles, you have smaller routes within the larger routes. So I think, I have some information on just feedback over the past couple of years on where those should be, but Paul, if you have any other thoughts on, where those connections can be. The other is, where we have some of these connectors that fall like as a multi-purpose path. We like parks have been sort of taking on the role or the responsibility of if it's a connector that's connecting two corridors, we've included that in the Greenway plan. But let's just say that it provides a connection, but isn't necessarily connecting at the ridge of two corridors. It becomes more of a transportation project. So, I don't know where we cut the line off, because we could draw so many lines on this map, and say, hey, that's Greenway.
Yeah, well, or it's both. And maybe one thing that would be great for me is, do we want to have a different standard for wayfinding and pavement markings potentially, where it does co-locate with a Greenway? So like Green Road is on here, and I know that we just got a sidewalk on part of it. We're getting ready to do bike lanes as soon as the repaving crews hit. We think it's going to get repaved this summer 2021. Should we brand that with a higher standard? Should we do additional?
Which one was that? Sorry.
Green Road. It's one of those purple lines that we're looking at right there.
Yeah, right here.
Yep. So that hopefully will be an existing facility. We'll have sidewalks and bike lanes. So in terms of meeting the needs of the users, we should meet the spec, even though it's an on-street facility. It'll get them from the Greenway to the other Greenway pretty comfortably. So, and that's Marsh Creek is a big one for us, and so is going up the Brentwood corridor. I know we're really challenged on road with facilities in this part of the city. We don't have much at all. We're going to be just got some on Fox. That project just got completed, and we're going to be getting some with the New Hope Church project. But other than that, I mean, there's really not much up here, and there's not a lot in the hopper. So we may be leaning on Greenways to sort of help with some of the initial connections in the next decade. If Marsh Creek were able to be funded, that would be huge for this part of town. I mean, especially if we can find a way to get that last little bit that goes under 440. We really don't have a lot of great connections from inside to outside the Beltline here. Raleigh Boulevard is one of the few that isn't an interchange. And that's kind of from an on-road perspective where we're looking to try and get as much bang for the buck as we can. The other ones would be whatever recommendations are coming out of the Midtown St. Albans plans for North Hills. Again, we have the same issue. We've got Lassiter Mill, and it's one of the few really good connections across 40. There's one other, is it Yadkin that goes under? It used to be one of the old numbered bike routes, is how I know it.
Where was that near?
Sorry?
Where was that near again?
That's just sort of connections underneath the Beltline. But the Marsh Creek one is the one where you see the Treywick Road label. It goes east-west. That's Marsh Creek, and then the Brentwood is that spur that goes directly north-south off of that same place. They both come right off of Crabtree and cross 440. So if you follow Crabtree down to the south, keep going. Yeah, that guy right there.
Yeah.
That one's going to be really a big catalyst, I think, in that part of the city. And then same for Brentwood. crossing Capitol is difficult. But the other ones are all on here. I didn't mention Pigeon House Branch because I'm kind of taking that Devereaux Pigeon House as a given. I know it's a big, ugly, expensive project, but again, that's another one that's going to be really transformative. Trying to get across Capitol Boulevard inside the Beltline is a tough one. I mean, you've got a trifecta of hate there with a Blue Line USGS stream, a railroad, and a major arterial. That's just a tough nut to crack.
Tough to avoid some huge structure costs.
So one big challenge for us, and I'm sure you're probably aware of it, Tom, but as far as the dedications go from residential development, the UDO is tied specifically to floodplain, flood-prone areas. So if in residential development, developers required to dedicate easements, if the property is adjacent to what's identified as Capital Area Greenway, but it's also, the UDO is also linked to only flood-prone areas. So for example, like the Rosen Garden, there was a property that was being developed as residential adjacent to the Rosen Garden, not even Rosen Garden Stream, it's called Rosen Garden. The project's called Rosen Garden because of Rosen Garden Alley. But if you zoom down to that area along Rosen Garden, there's actually a stream there. And it connects Cabarrus down to Walnut Creek. But that area was not considered to be part of the floodplain. So therefore, the residential developer did not have to dedicate easement. So where we have these connectors like Durant, outside of floodplain, we cannot get dedication. So wherever we add these corridors or connectors, when I say corridors, I'm no longer referring to a stream corridor, because if it's a corridor, a Greenway corridor, it could be a stream, along a stream, along a street, along a utility.
Yep.
So we just have to make sure that the policy recommendations that come out of this, that we're able to still somehow get dedication. Should be no different than a developer building a sidewalk or dedicating right of way for that infrastructure of a road or sidewalk.
Yeah, it's sort of along the lines of where the UDO would say you need to build a separated bike lane with the sidewalk in this typology. That only
Right.
if there was say a local trail planned along this street, the UDO you'd need to have that provision in there.
Yeah.
To give it more
Yeah.
and sort
And
of
right now,
urban
on
trail.
the street side, one of the issues that I've run into, and is they want to see it be symmetrical because we can't impact one property owner different from another property owner. So if we know we want to put a side path that's 14 feet wide on the north side of whatever road, we currently, that hasn't been working right now because of that restriction. So I said, but I know Cary's doing it. I know Apex is doing it. I see it on a constant basis. How are they doing it? They've been doing it rather than through the roadway dedication part where it has to be symmetrical. They've been doing it as an open space dedication to meet the open space requirements of their ordinance. And so it's just a linear open space. They provide the easement. I think Cary actually pays for the trail, but the developer does the easement. But that's how they get around that constitutional issue of being unfair and treating one developer different. Other places I've seen where they just say, hey, it was in the plan, buyer beware. It's been out there. It's public knowledge. If you didn't do your homework, that's on you. I haven't seen that used in the triangle quite as much as I have in other places.
Okay, it looks like we only have 30 seconds, but a few other thoughts for how this provides access to open space, and then thoughts on how the proposed network coordinates with the transportation system. So I think that might be one thing, is a way to kind of overlay and compare the two when you're thinking about the context of what's proposed.
No,
I
that's-
guess when I look at this,
I'm sorry, I like that open space concept you just mentioned.
yeah. I guess real quick, when I'm looking at this plan, I see a lot of opportunity for,
Welcome back, everyone.
Yeah,
Ran out of time again.
always. Never fails. Okay. Let's see here.
Hey, Jared,
Yeah.
are you in a padded cell, buddy?
He's been asked that a few times today.
Oh gosh, I'm in the recording
No,
studio.
it looks like you
Susan.
have a recording studio or a padded
That's
cell. I
right.
like it.
I'm in the recording studio. No, I'm just a phone booth with carpet walls. Call it what you want. Awesome. Well, hey, thank you everyone for taking some time in the smaller groups. I think that, you know, obviously I don't know what was said in all of them. I was excited to hear what we were talking about.